I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, a city located in the Midwest, not a large city in comparison to Los Angeles, New York City, or Chicago. Nevertheless, a city, the largest in Iowa. Although I am a Black American from Iowa, the demographics are much less diverse than you may think. With only about 3% Black Americans statewide. Yes, I know, it is a statistic shocker to most. But to those of us who were born Black in Iowa, it is what it is. I am a mix of races. Not too certain about the percentages, but we only have about 3 generations we can track back to on my maternal mother's side. After that, it gets a bit foggy. My maternal grandmother knows that her father was white, African American, and Native American. Her mother, Native American. On my paternal mother's side, it is very unclear, but my paternal grandmother was mostly Native American. As we are unclear to the specifics of our heritage, we are also unclear to what cultures we have adapted to and clung to. Since each mixed nation in our blood did not associate themselves with us. Either way, our skin is brown, we are called Black, and we have some lineage to enslaved Africans. Therefore, we are African American by definition. Some of you could imagine what it's like growing up in a pretty much all-white town. If not, well, it feels like a constant battle. Not like your general daily battles in life. Battles that are hard to describe to someone who has not had the experience. A battle no one really likes to talk about because the wounds are always still so fresh. Battles like walking into an established business and being followed because of what you look like, not getting an interview because of your name, or not having any events in the area that represent Black American culture or heritage. But it is what it is. My parents did well providing for my sibling and I growing up. They instilled some particularly good morals, faith, and ideologies in our foundation, of which others were quite less fortunate of acquiring. Their ways of thinking were a bit more progressive than most Black Americans, which led us to being more creative and deliberate about life. But they had no idea what we were up against in our own world, as Black kids, growing up in our time. In their home, living quite different lives than they had as children and had imagined for us. Doing the things every parent would disapprove of but of which every child was doing. Following the trends of society, acclaiming our Blackness through our popularity. It was hard, trying to define yourself as a Black American with substance, when you lacked any examples of what that looked like. Any modern images presented to me were on TV or in the magazines. During my youth, it was the men wearing super baggy clothes, sagging their jeans, and who all talked broken jargon English with slang entwined. As the women wore more than revealing clothing, spoke rambunctious, were loud, had a neck and finger twinge with attitude spewing. Images that are not too far off from what represents Black American culture today. Of course, I had my share of following the trends, trying to define the Black in me. But at some point, mostly my sophomore year in high school, I just stopped. I was tired of trying to express myself through culture that did not feel like it represented me accurately. I always felt like I was deeper than the skin I was in, deeper than what others thought of me, what people seen of me, what I wore, how I spoke, and how well I played basketball. I was tired of the occasional white person assuming I was okay with speaking slang with them, just because of the color of my skin. One often saying, "What's up?" Knowing they would not address one of their own in that fashion. I wanted to be respected, not just as a woman but as a Black woman of substance. Respected for who I am. But it was like everybody was ready for a party. Hey! Turn up, what's everyone so serious about? Even the white people in my school partook. Life's about having fun. Crystal drinking, blunt smoking, pie popping on a handstand, all while the sky is raining money. Everybody portrayed like this was life. Nothing more, nothing less. No one was really concerned about Black culture, the depth of it, longevity of the Black person, or what was to come next. I mean, after all, Black Americans have already overcome so many hurdles: slavery, segregation, and blatant racism. Hell, even white people were embracing our culture, playing our music, talking, walking, acting, and representing our culture like it was the new fashion. Even though it was a way of life for Black Americans, the culture is not just a song, a way to dress, talk, or act. It includes a story. Stories that many of the white people who partied with us and celebrated were not a part of or could not relate to. So, When it came down to transitioning into the real world, Black American teens were left living the culture. As white American teens pursued their lives as their parents intended, excellent credit, connections to the top-paying jobs, money for college, and a set future to be successful. As Black Americans took culture in stride and statistically followed the cycle, there has never been any handbook on how to be culturally Black in America. There's never been anyone to pass on valuable information on living it as a Black American transitioning into living free. Hell, after slavery and segregation ended, we just started winging this shit. Nowhere to go, no knowledge of how to be free, just doing how we knew best to survive. Sure, in certain instances, it's been valuable to take advice from the elders who have already lived life. But what about advice through our progression? No one has ever really had any advice because no one has ever lived it. As time progressed, the more we lost an essence of ourselves. The culture that defined us, me, constantly in search of self as it pertained to heritage, culture, and depth thereof. Even if it included pain, shame, and humiliation. You see, the only modern Black heroes that were ever presented to many of us in the new millennial were the Malcolm X's, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubmans, and Martin Luther Kings. No one beyond the stories of heroes who fought against slavery or segregation. No examples or heroes to idol what life looked like as a Black American progressing into freedom. How could the new Black millennial relate or reiterate these iconic Black beings' mentalities, as we were no longer faced with the same atrocities? I personally could not find any representation that represented the Black in me, culturally speaking. So, as it was, I and many of us took to popular representation of ourselves, finding ourselves defining culture by those who are paid to do what they do. Entertain us, as we pay for it, monetarily and culturally. All that sells, we buy, as culture. The faces for what our skin is to represent is sold to me. Not comprehending the depth of it all being business, some creation as the sole purpose of art, some for culture, but most creating to trend, become popular and get bank. Intentions that hardly care about how it affects the culture's depth going no deeper than the money it makes. Influencing our morals, our walk, talk, our looks, act, what we wear, what we think, our expectations of life and others. Our Blackness being capitalized on right in front of us, losing what Black culture means, bit by bit. Trying to find what it means to be free, as other races have had generations upon generations of knowing what that means. I am a makeup of trends, not too much depth within, no foundation or representation of where I come from or who I am, but a product of what this nation has determined me to be. Through buying and selling a piece of me to be free, not valuing the priceless things but wanting the most expensive things for me. When none of them define me. Looking for depth, only to find it to be of surface. When I finally leave, I hope it was all worth it. The culture. By any means, be who you are. Express yourself. Be a trailblazer. But as you are, give way to who you are and not who you are influenced to be.